From the former convent of the Good Shepherd overlooking Inwood Hill Park in New York City, welcome to Inwood Artworks On Air. It's where we meet the musicians, filmmakers, writers, theater makers, and artists of all stripes who make their home in what we affectionately call Upstate Manhattan. I'm your host, Aaron Sims, and today we welcome writer Jeffrey James Keyes. Jeffrey is an interdisciplinary writer and artist living in Uptown NYC. He is a New York Times bestselling author for Killer Chef, which he co-authored with James Patterson. Jeffrey was the inaugural Le Engel Ramen Prize recipient for mentorship through Pan America. His award-winning short film, Uniform, was featured in over 30 film festivals worldwide, and his short, 181, was part of the first Inwood Film Festival. He is a recipient of the 2019 Artist Patrons Fund and wrote the script for Digital Arrest, a new virtual reality experience that won the top prize in creative technology at NYC Media Lab. He just wrapped work on his latest project, Christmas, which is a short that will be part of a series of film monologues through the Fresh Fruit Festival. His new television pilot script, Cream City, has placed in over 10 film festivals, including recently winning first place in the Niagara Falls Short Film Festival. This spring, Poseidon Theater Company will relaunch Drama, an Oral Experience, a podcast series featuring a collection of his short-form audio plays, all within the horror realm. He's also been collaborating with a new collective playwrights he initiated called The Convening. We're going to talk about all of this work and so much more, but first, let me welcome you, Jeffrey, in What Artworks On Air. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much, Aaron. Thank you for having me.
You're very, very welcome. As I mentioned, you co-authored the New York Times bestseller Killer Chef with James Patterson, who is arguably one of the most popular contemporary writers of our time. How did that come about?
You know, it's funny. I was pursuing other work, specifically in television, and at the time, Patterson had his show Zoo in production. And I was really trying to see how I could get work on Zoo. And so I met with a variety of different people with his company. And I met with both of his presidents, and I was recommended. They asked if I was interested in writing a book, and I said yes. And so I did a trial run. I sent him 2 chapters, and they loved it. So
you didn't say, no, Zoo.
No, I thought, you know what, let's get the book through first, and then Zoo, and then, Zoo was done. So I didn't have the opportunity to work on Zoo, unfortunately.
But the book is forever.
The book is forever. Yeah. Yeah, and it was my first book, so it was exciting.
That's incredibly exciting. What was the process like collaborating with him to tell the story you were wanting to tell?
It was a cool experience for me. It was fast and furious. Basically, I received a lot of information about what he was thinking for the book, and so I started developing. I started developing chapters from this very thorough outline that he had put together that was basically a treatment. And I worked for 3 months, and I did the book in 3 months.
So he kind of gave you the treatment, and so as a kind of a roadmap, or did you have your own ideas and meet him in the middle? Like, how'd that go?
I really executed his vision for the story.
Cool.
But I was definitely able to infuse it with a little bit of my, of who I am and myself.
Awesome. Well, and I guess the main thing as a writer, are you happy with the final version?
I really am. I loved it. I had a lot of fun working on it, and actually seeing something that was tangible, that I could hold in my hand, that I could share with people, that I could give to people, was just a thrill for me. And the story itself, I thought, came out really well.
Well, it's available, people, on Amazon, wherever else. Go get it, okay? Well, in addition to writing books, you're also a very established playwright for the stage and screen. And do you have a preference amongst these multiple mediums that you've worked in? Do you have like a secret favorite amongst, like, between film, stage, writing, books?
I love them all. However, theater is my foundation. It's my home base. It's my first love. So absolutely, I would say playwriting.
Awesome. And do you have a favorite play that you've written?
Yeah, I wrote this play that I feel like I think about how Tony Kushner rewrites things. He rewrote Homebody Cobble. He's rewritten Angels in America several times. A couple seasons ago, the public redid, I forget the name of the play.
Was it A Bright Room Called Day?
Yeah, Bright Room Called Day. Yeah. So he rewrote that. And I feel, not that I would put myself in the same category as Tony Kushner, but I think that I'm continually rewriting things. And so there's this play called Isle Royale that takes place just off on this remote island off the coast of Michigan that I went to when I was a teenager, and I wrote a play based there essentially. And I keep coming back to that. I feel like it's my favorite play. I think I'm not done with it. I think that there's still more work to be done on it, but that would be my favorite piece that I'm working on.
Well, I think it's really great for people to hear that, like how your work evolves, and there's no reason why the work has to be finished, because it's for an audience happening now, and so you're evolving, the audience is evolving, and and you're learning more about yourself, you're learning more about the piece the longer you spend with it, and you're learning about the audience that you're hopefully intending it for.
I agree, and I feel like you learn from taking in other work. You learn from watching other things and seeing how they solve certain issues that you maybe are coming up with in your writing. I've been watching this show Yellow Jackets quite a bit, and I feel like Yellow Jackets in tone is very similar to my play.
Okay.
And so I'm learning a lot by watching that, and I keep having that in the back of my mind that, oh my gosh, I want to go back and reconstruct this thing because they did it in this way, and while I'm not going to do it in that same way, I've learned from what I've taken in as a spectator and audience member as well.
Do you have any plans, or does anyone have any plans to produce this new version?
Not currently, but I'm definitely, once I'm at a place where I want to start sharing it again, I'll definitely start sharing it quite a bit.
Excellent, because now you got my appetite whetted for it. I want to see this play.
Oh, thanks.
So, speaking of playwriting, this past fall you started a playwrights collective called The Convening. Can you tell us the mission behind the collective and how it came to be?
Yeah, absolutely. This fall, the closing of the Lark, I think, was big in the playwriting community, and I saw a lot of people being extremely frustrated and already immediately feeling the impact of this institution that did so much for playwrights suddenly being gone. And I know that certain organizations have absorbed certain programming that had already been a part of the Lark, but I thought, if we've learned nothing in the past couple of years, it's been we don't have to wait we don't have to wait for production, we don't have to wait for development, we don't have to wait for all of these things. There are things that we can do on our own. And I think that as a community, we can come together and we can try to support each other in a variety of ways, sharing information, encouraging people to continue on. And now we don't need to go to a physical space to have a reading as playwrights. We can do it on Zoom. We can do it, we can listen to things, we can give people feedback in a variety of ways. And so I created The Convening for playwrights to come together as a group. I think some people initially thought, oh, this could be like a support group in a way. And I don't see it necessarily fully as a support group, as I see it as a kind of, I would say, collective where we support each other and encourage each other, but also find opportunities for each other and find concrete things that we can be doing to take ourselves to the next level. And so I think that there is a little bit of some components of the Lark in there. I think there's a little bit of new dramatists elements in there, but I think that it's different. I think that what we can do as a community and as a group of people together is really powerful. I think that we don't have to wait for people to give us opportunities. We can seek them out as a group, but we can also support each other and push each other to that next place, which can be very simple steps. Some people, for instance, there are all these submission opportunities. Some of them require references, and that's a hurdle for people. I think some people, maybe they're 10, 20 years out of school, so they don't want to ask a former professor to write a letter of reference for them. They don't want to ask an institution to write a letter of reference for them. We can do that for them. We can as a collective say, oh, I've known your work for 15 years. I would love to write a reference letter for you. So we don't have to wait for all of these institutional things to propel us to that next place. We can do it on our own.
Very important to have endorsements.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I find more and more being someone who hires book writers and librettists and playwrights, it's not really so much a question of talent. It's a question of, do we want to work with them and be tied to them for the rest of our lives, professionally?
Yes.
Because people think, oh, you're only doing a play. It's only going to be like 4 weeks of rehearsal and maybe a 4 to 5 week run somewhere. No, that play lives on. And and hopefully, and I say this from an optimistic point of view, is that I love writers. I love actors. I love, I mean, from people who ever listen to this podcast knows that I'm a big cheerleader for creatives in general. But there's something to be said about being linked to someone who may not be good to work with. As much as you may love their work, once you actually work with them, things can change, and some relationships don't work out because that's just life. But I think what you're saying is wonderful. The fact that you guys are not only a support system, but I like to talk a tad bit further because I'm so interested in hearing like the actual nuts and bolts of like what is a typical meeting like? It's like, are you guys sharing work? Are you sharing like a scene? Does everybody get like a specific amount of time, or is it just more of a support group of having is there time just to chat and like you're saying for support, career support rather than content support? So I was curious if you'd enlighten us on how the group operates as far as the services of the group.
Of course. So we have a monthly meeting, and we do have business that we need to attend to, essentially. But different people bring things to me between the meetings, and different people say, "Hey, I think that we should explore this." So, for instance, later this spring, we're going to have somewhat of a reading series that we're putting together. And so, at our last meeting, we touched on that quite a bit. What shape would it look like? What type of actors would we bring in? Where would it be? Which organization might we be interested in partnering with? And so different people introduce certain things. And so we touch on all of those things, but we have, space and time for people to share where they are, where their headspace is, what they're thinking about, anything that they're excited about coming up. And so, each meeting is a little bit different, but we always have quite a bit to cover, and we keep the meetings pretty, an hour 15, but, we typically go over a little bit because there's always more to the conversation that we want to get in.
I've never seen a playwright lost for words.
Exactly.
Well, speaking of incubating new ideas, I want to shift and new work, and time for those ideas to gestate and come up. You've created a retreat for yourself.
Yes.
Upstate to do just that. That you call it Patton Pond.
Yes.
Right. So, and you would like to open up this to others in the spirit of not so much it has to be part of the convening, but possible to aid other writers like yourself. Can you talk about this little piece of heaven?
Absolutely. So Patton Pond is a property that my husband and I purchased. It's a little over 5 acres, and it's in Austerlitz, New York, which is where Edna St. Vincent Millay lived. And we're actually just down we're just down the mountain from the Millay Society, which used to be called the Millay Colony. Mm-hmm. And so we actually get quite a few. We have it listed on Airbnb for proper rentals, but we actually get quite a few people who either just stayed at Millay and want to stay in the area a little bit longer, or for with an artist residency, it's just them. So sometimes we'll get like their spouse will stay at our place, and they can spend time together on the weekends. So we definitely see some connection between the Millay Society. But it's our own place. My husband and I are both writers, and so we spend time writing there. We spend time creating, recharging, dreaming, all of the above. We were fortunate enough to find it and I guess close in on it right before the pandemic hit. And so we were able to spend much of 2020 redeveloping it, fixing it up, getting it ready to stay in. And then that fall, we were able to stay there and start opening it up for other people to come out as well.
So now it's open, and how do they contact you to be part of this?
Well, through Airbnb right now, but okay. we do eventually want to create it. We want to shift so that it is also a space where we can have, friends and colleagues, come there as well and kind of have their own residency.
All right. So be on the lookout in Airbnb, folks, for the opportunity for Patton Pond up there. Let's shift the conversation to film now, because there's just so much to cover. We did the written word on the books, and that we did plays. Now we're going to do your film career here a little bit. This is your life, Jeffrey James Keyes. You wrote a terrific course short, 181. That debuted at our film festival, and that was a great experience. And I understand now you have a new short in pre-production. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I write a lot of monologues. Basically, I'm someone who loves working in short form and loves developing short projects. And so I started thinking about how, in the pandemic specifically, how can I create theater that's online or that's virtual and so I started kind of digging into my existing content and developing more that could be filmed. And so this is just an example of one of those monologues that I really saw could be something that could be a short film. And so I started submitting it for different opportunities. And this one came up, and kind of at the end of last year, it was pretty fast and furious. We had a very short time frame to film it, and my director and I filmed it, and we had a great experience with it. My director's Aaron. His name is Aaron Salazar, and he did a tremendous job with this piece. And it's going to be in this festival a little bit later this year. To be decided. I'm not sure exactly when it launches. It might be 2 weeks from now, but the information will be up and available accordingly.
That's the world of COVID. We'll let you know when we can do it.
Right, exactly.
Great. Well, that's fantastic. And you have a pilot making the rounds as well. So I'm curious how, and we mentioned how it's mid awards and throughout the different festivals. I'm curious because you've had shorts in festivals, and then you have essentially screenplays as going for prizes for different festivals. I'm curious, how does a film festival help a pilot script get noticed, and has it helped yours in what way?
I would say, okay, so I think that there's a lot of there's no one definitive way to get your work into somebody's hands and into production. I think that there are a lot of different opportunities for writers to get their work out there. And I think historically, kind of the route that I've taken as a writer is I need to get my work to a manager or to an agent or a production company, and then they'll take it from there. And I think that submitting to film festivals can be a really great way, if they have a scripts division, can be a really great way while you're developing and refining it to get feedback and to get, I think that you can take a workshop or a class or hire a script consultant to get that feedback. But if you're submitting for a variety of different places, you're getting, and you're paying for the feedback, or if it's already built into what the submission fee is, you're getting a lot of different, completely unbiased notes on your script that can be useful, that you can take or leave, but it can be very useful. And especially when there are consistent notes from places that are saying you need to fix this storyline, or this character needs more heat, or I don't understand this conflict, or I don't understand what you're doing here. It can be remarkably helpful for you as you're continuing to develop it, so that the script, as you revise it, just gets better and better. And ultimately, you want to put your best foot forward. And once it is in the hands of a production company or in a producer's hands, it's going to evolve regardless. But you want to make your script as foolproof as possible. So it's a really helpful way for getting your work out there.
Feedback is so important, and at whatever level. And for those who aren't quite familiar with the process, it is subjective, obviously, but it could take months, if not years, to get a theater company / a production company in film to get back to you, if ever.
Yes.
And so to have these kind of festivals with the mission to aid writers, it's very valuable. And I just really thank you for being so forthwith about how it's helped you and how it helps others too, because it's kind of a foreign concept. You're like, wait, you're going to a film festival, but you can't see the film. You have to, or the pilot can't see the pilot, and they have to put effort, have to read it. But my hope is that, kind of going back to what you said with the convening too, is like these endorsements can help move with feedback, which hopefully is helpful and constructive, can help move the play forward in different ways, not only just from the creative side and building the structure of the story and aiding you and crafting it, but also hopefully it'll put it in the right hands for it to be done and gain, like I said, popularity, for lack of a better term, to move it forward.
I agree. And, Aaron, we both came into this field as actors, essentially. Yeah. And I feel like my approach as an actor in going to an audition is not necessarily to book this job. Yeah, of course, that's the goal. But it's so that these people meet me and they know who I am, and maybe they'll consider me for something else. And I think in a similar realm, submitting your script for a festival, the readers who are there they have other jobs. They have other companies that they're working with. They're developing their own projects. They might be the head of their own production company.
Right.
And so you're not necessarily just thinking about this film festival at hand. You're thinking about the reach of all of the people who work for that company. But also, if you place in the festival, more people will be reading your work, or more people will see that you've accomplished this or that you've done this. And the agents and managers and everybody else will see that announced when they get information from the newsletter that they subscribe to, or something along those lines. So you don't just think about the immediate; you think about the longevity of your project.
And there's something to be said too, going back to the actor metaphor, if you will, the actor world, is that how many times does your headshot go across somebody's desk? When you kept or writing a personalized postcard, in the sense of like using that as how many times they keep seeing your name with a new project or the same project that keeps on getting accolades and buildings saying, why didn't I read that? If Austin Film Festival looked at it and gave it a nod, why didn't we do? And it makes them reconsider, if not reinvest in you as a creative. And I think that is one way of getting your work done. And to your point too, is that it's about building a career.
Yes.
It's not about that one specific show, if your audition or your submission for that one pilot, bringing it back to writing. It's about your work and your body of work and being a trusted person and cultivating a career, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're building a community as well, and you're entering other people's communities. So you need to be respectful, and I think that you also need to understand those rules of the community in order to get your work out there.
And being part of that community that's the way you do it, folks.
Yeah.
Or one way, I'll say it, one way of doing it. I said you've had success in many different forms. And we've covered all of them, I think. So what advice, kind of segueing off from that, for the film festival route, and keep putting yourself out there is one, of course. But is there any particular advice you can give to writers out there who are trying to find ways to create and getting their projects noticed?
Yeah. So I think that hands down, you have to keep generating work, and you have to give yourself the opportunity to create work however you are able to. I think some people really think that they need to ascribe to what other writers do for developing and cultivating work. If you're a writer that needs to wake up at 3 a.m. and scribble on your desk and then refine it a little bit later, that's fine. If you are somebody that needs to not write for a whole year and then sit down over a long weekend and bang out a book, hey, more power to you. Like that, you have to listen to your intuition within that realm. And you have to just put it out there then. I think that a lot of times you don't know how to put it out there, but you just have to do it. I have all of these short forms and all these short materials. And so just in conversations with friends that are putting things out there, I've said, I have all this stuff, I have all this content, but I don't necessarily know what to do with it. And so that's how the drama podcast came about, because I just was like, I have all these like creepy ghost story, like thriller type horror genre things.
Right.
Would you take a look at it and see if there's anything, what I should do with it? I had been building it so that I could do basically a compilation of short horror plays, essentially. And so we started making them a podcast, which is Drama and Oral Experience. And we had the first 3 out. They went over very well. And we've been regrouping a little bit, and we've recorded the next 3, and we're continuing to build more.
Well, that's great advice. In the words of Nike, just do it and keep doing it. And so where can we find more of your work and all of your materials? Where can we send people?
So 2 places. My website is jeffreyjameskeys.com. It's 2 E's, not 1. And then I'm pretty active on social media at JJ Keys is my Twitter handle and my Instagram handle. I'm also on the New Play Exchange, which also we didn't really talk about that, but that's like, if you're a playwright, I think that is the best place to put your work. I think that it's becoming, it is a landing page for all playwrights, essentially. And I think that a lot of people are jumping on the bandwagon with it. We could chat more about New Play Exchange if you're interested.
I feel like we can. We're not short on time by any means, but I just feel like there's to go right there with it. And I had a thought about this when we were talking about the Lark and everything too. Is like, the landscape has changed with COVID so much. And the question I kind of had my crawl, and I think this you bring it up. Let's go there. What is the landscape now? You have, New York Station Film is great for cultivating new work, and from the reading level up to development level to full production level for short periods of time. You have places like New Dramatists, a lot about cultivation. You have obviously you have off Broadway for showcase theater about, let's skip the reading level, let's just go do it for 30,000 and just see it warts and all and see what shines as well. And then you have like the New Play Network, which is a vast. We please talk about it's a vast collection throughout the country. It's beyond New York.
It's huge. Yeah. So New Play Exchange is basically a website kind of similar to a lot of people know about the Blacklist for film and for television scripts. And that's a website where basically you can pay, I think it's like, I forget what the amount is, but you pay a certain amount to host your script so that executives can read it and can see it. And so that you can be considered for different things like their Blacklist list of, very top of the line scripts. New Play Exchange is basically a place where you can host all of your scripts for a very low fee for writers. And other writers, other actors, theater professionals, whoever is on New Play Exchange can essentially recommend your play and write a short note about it. And so I think as playwrights, you definitely want to try to get people to read your scripts and give a nice note on it, so it maybe comes up in the algorithm more. I don't know exactly how that works with it, but essentially you tag your script in a certain way. I can tag it and say, this is a ghost story, or this is a queer story, or this features, this centers women, or this is a play that it has a Christmas theme in it. And so I can tag my play a variety of different ways. So if you as a theater producer are looking for a Halloween play, you're going to click on that Halloween tag and, thousands of scripts will come up, but it'll be what you're looking for. You're looking for to look through dozens and dozens of scripts.
It's a searchable database, and you can, like you're looking for an apartment, or a house or whatever, a searchable database that you can break down towards how many. Big thing for small and large regional, any theater is the size of cast.
Yes.
And so you can sort by that. You can sort by genre, like you're saying. And so it can be very helpful.
Absolutely. And I think it's a great place for, touching on that question of how can you as a writer be proactive and be productive. I think that it's a really good way to be proactive because you never know who's going to find your script. And I've received inquiries for option, inquiries for production, a variety of things from people I've never met that I don't know that I haven't submitted to. And then you build your community that way. Then I Google them, I look up their company, I look into it, and I see if I want to follow up with them. If I'm okay with them doing a production of my company of a show that I've put up there. So it's really proactive, and it's good to just read other people's work. It's, for me, I love reading other playwrights' plays
because the full thing's there, and it's not just an excision, right?
You can do either. You can put up a sample, and maybe that's maybe you don't want to jump into reading a full length.
Sure.
But you read a sample, and you're like, oh, I'd like to keep reading this, so you can do that.
See. So I want people to go there and find Jeffrey's work and produce it. And I'm curious, is your favorite play up there?
Yeah, it is.
There you go.
Isle Royale.
See, bring it back full circle.
And I have a lot of shorts up there too. If you want to take a look at, a 10-minute play, or I have 1-minute plays up there, monologues, and every different category.
Actors need monologues for auditions. Producers need short plays for short play festivals. It's really smart. Well, I'm so proud of you, and it's so great to see you being so proactive. You're a perfect example, I think, what people should be doing in the writing community, particularly for the performing arts and stage and screen. So I wish you all the best, my friend.
Thank you.
And thank you again for being on our program here
Absolutely.
today.
Thanks for having me. And thank you for showing me this really cool space that we're in. There's a farmer's market, in the street in front of us. It's just, Inwood is such a lively neighborhood. I love it.
Well, I think we've done a good job in showcasing it in a positive light.
Yes. Yes.
And we hope we keep doing that.
And you continue to.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. So, thanks again to Jeffrey James Keyes for joining me on this Artist Spotlight episode of Inwood Artworks On Air. It's where I meet the musicians, theater makers, writers, filmmakers, and artists of all stripes who make their home in what we affectionately call Upstate Manhattan. If you have a moment, please show us some love right now by rating and reviewing this podcast on Apple Podcasts. That really does help. Many thanks to Church of Good Shepherd for hosting us here in Inwood NYC, and to hidesites.com for uptown promotional support. Be sure to follow us on social media at Inwood Artworks to keep up all that we do, which includes the Inwood Film Festival, concerts, Filmworks al fresco, pop-up art galleries, live performances, podcasts, and more. You can support On Air and all of our programming by making a tax-free donation at inwoodartworks.nyc/donate. This program is supported in part by public funds, the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs, in partnership with City Council. From the top of Manhattan and the bottom of our hearts, thank you so much for tuning in. This is Aaron Sims for Inwood Artworks On Air.